For the live stream? For the live stream? Thank you. Can I do the same?
So if you just go to the Hinkley Institute website, which is just hinkley.utah.edu, it should be there. I'm also going to be a Teams it today with you.
If we don't have it in Spanish.
And there we go. You got it.
Yeah, because you said
And
it's
I just Teams it to you.
marvelous. Thank you so much. Mom, look, he's proud of me.
My mom's with my grandma, so they can both look.
I love that.
Makes sense.
And then were you able to find the link, or would you like the link? Good, good. Okay, so quick microphone warning for you. I'll be unmuting your mics at the top of the hour right after we finish introductions. And just assume that you're live the whole time. But as soon as you hear applause at the end, I turn off the system so you're clear. So yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. With that, I think we just had one or two folks out there, just quite part of our team, but if you're ready, I think we can start with intros.
Okay, perfect. All right, well, welcome everybody. My name is Ty Jensen, and I am the Marketing and Program Coordinator at the Center for Community and Cultural Engagement. And welcome to today, our March installment of Crimson Conversation, hosted by the Hinckley Institute of Politics and the CCE. Today, our panelists will be sharing their perspectives as they relate to our theme, Blooming in Leadership. Perspectives on womanhood from community leaders. And I will introduce our panelists and moderators, and then we'll jump right into our questions. The first one we've got is Cassie Zamora Cathart, and she has worked in post-secondary education for a decade and is dedicated to supporting student development and success for all students. In her current role, Cassie works with the amazing SLI team to ensure that all the students at the U can find their passion, people, and purpose during their academic journeys here at the U. And in all their post-graduation endeavors. Cassie is a orgulloso ponderosa, proud and powerful Latina and Tejana leader on campus. And I'm sorry if I butchered that. But she earned her BS in wildlife conservation biology from Cal Poly Humboldt and an MS in college student affairs with a focus on conflict analysis and resolution from Nova Southeastern University. Congratulations, that's awesome. She is currently in a second-year education doctorate, student in higher education administration here at the U. Her research examines the human and policy impacts of Utah's HB 261 on staff members and institutions across the state of Utah. Through her research and practice, Cassie centers, uplifts, and advocates for marginalized students and practitioners' voices and experiences. Everybody welcome Cassie. And our second panelist is Shaw McNeil. She is the founder and executive director of the Moore Foundation, Inc., an organization committed to expanding educational opportunities for formerly incarcerated individuals and their families. Her work is deeply personal and rooted in her unwavering belief that education is a fundamental human right, essential for creating equitable opportunities and empowering people to define their own success. Shaw is the manager of health and well-being strategic initiatives at the University of Utah, where she builds programs that foster belonging and support for all students. As a fifth-year PhD student, congratulations, her research focuses on the reintegration of formerly incarcerated students through education. Her advocacy is shaped by her own experiences and a commitment to breaking down systemic barriers. She holds degrees at Columbia University, Farley Dickinson University, and Bergen Community College, and is an active member of the Beta Kappa Sigma Black and Latina Sorority, Inc., dedicated to mentorship and empowerment. Everybody welcome Shaw. And last but not least is Alondra Morales, and her first-generation Latin student at the University of Utah, majoring in ethnic studies and health society and policy. She has held various leadership positions through the Bunyan Center. During her time at the University of Utah, she has been actively involved in student activism and is currently committed to labor organizing. She enjoys working in community and spending time with her family and friends. Alondra hopes to share her experiences to inspire others to recognize their collective power and create meaningful change. Everybody welcome Alondra. Our moderators today represent the Center for Community and Cultural Engagement. They are all wonderful people that I work with, and I'm so happy to introduce them. Kirsten Bong. She is an alumni with an undergraduate degree in political science and anthropology. Kirsten holds a master's degree in African American studies from the University of Kansas. And then Tiara Mitchell is also a University of Utah alumni holding undergraduate degrees in gender studies and ethnic studies. Tiara is currently pursuing her master's degree in education, leadership, and policy. And a quick reminder that the University of Utah is not taking a stance on any of the issues being discussed in today's event. The participants are speaking from their own perspectives as an individual and not as representatives of the university. And thank you all for being here. And it's important to engage in discussion as part of our roster of events. And I will now turn the time over to our moderators.
Thank you so much, Ty. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I want to second thank you to our panelists for being here and to everyone else. We have 7 questions. We'll try to get to them all. And so I will start our questions, and then our panelists, you can jump right in with your answers, and we will go through them. So, and thank you. I want to thank T as well for being here. So, our first question for today is, what do leadership and community mean to you, and how do your lived experiences inform that meaning?
You have a written document. You go first.
Oh, I don't know if that means I'm all that well prepared, but here we are. So for me, community, I think, is the space in which you find your people. It's where you find your power. It's where you find your strength. It is the space where you are connecting with the ones that you love, both family and chosen family, as well as the people who will join you in all of your endeavors and always celebrate and uplift you. And I think leadership is, to me, responsibility. I think that there are benefits that come with leadership, right? Access to power. And I do believe that there are folks who go into leadership purely for that power piece of things. For me personally, I see it as responsibility and something that I have to be accountable for. It is something that I seek into and participate in because of the access it gives me to elevate my community, to elevate other communities, to bring about change societally as a whole. And I think a lot of that is informed by the identities that I hold. They're obviously going to be more salient or less salient, meaning that I feel them more in some settings or not in other settings. But I think my identities as a Latina and Tejana, as a multiracial person, as a queer person, and a neurodivergent person, a plus size person, all of those pieces factor into who I am. And then layer over that my lived experiences. That informs how I show up as a leader, how I show up in community, the ways that I bring community with me, and elevate that community as a whole. And so I think, to me, the two cannot be separated from each other. They are intricately connected because of the way that I lead and the reason why I lead for me and myself.
In addition to that, I think that the key part about being with leadership, being in leadership and community, is that not every leadership doesn't look the same for every person. When I teach activism 101 off campus, the conversations that I have is about finding your place in the movement and finding your place in the leadership. I am not a boots on the ground activist. That's just not how I operate. My mom was a Black Panther and I grew up in the NAACP. So activism is like very much a part of what I do, but I'm an educator. So we need folks to be in different places in order to move everyone forward. So when you're thinking of your leadership, you think of your skills. You don't have to become something that you're not or that you're not passionate about. You can become something and develop someone that you want to be based off of the thing. So maybe you're a nursing major, and the way that you show up in leadership is talking about different care tactics that are culturally relevant to your patients based off of where you're going to be at. And you have those conversations with the people around you. You have those conversations with your staff, your friends, and all this other stuff. That is still leadership, even if you're not trying to be the person that is known for everything. That doesn't mean that your leadership changes. And then when you're in community with folks, you get to say, well, I'm a leader in this and you're a leader in that, and let's all get together to be able to support one another so that we're not receiving this burnout from leadership, right? When you're in community with one another, you can lean on somebody. You can, hey, I don't got it today. Can you get it today? Right? Oh, you don't have it today. I got it today. And Cassie, to your point of like, they have to be together, because when they're not, we see what the downfall of not having community looks like. Right? We see what happens when people don't work together, when people don't have each other's best interests at heart. And we have to say, hey, I'd rather do this with you than without you. And let's see how we best support one another in that.
Yeah, I have to echo with both of you. I think for me, leadership is like rooted in responsibility and accountability for the community that you are part of. I think it's important that you build trust and are constantly showing up in different ways. We all have different skills, and I think it's important that we understand that we have that collective, we can work with one another as a collective to create meaningful change. And I think that's what's important to recognize. It's not often the person up in the mountain doing everything. It's like showing up with everybody and inspiring others that they are able to make that meaningful change. So that's what I see, what leadership means to me, but also with community. I think it's important that you're always like working with your community and understanding what their needs are and building that trust with them.
Beautiful. I loved all of those answers. I think that is amazing. We're going to kind of shift gears. This is going to be a two-parter question. Can you share a moment or experience in your life when you realized that you were authentically recognized as a leader, either introspectively or by someone else? And then how did that experience shape how you perceived yourself in leadership spaces?
I go first. So when I started working here at the U in 2018, I originally worked in housing, and I oversaw our social justice advocates. I don't think any of y'all were here at that time. So long ago, I feel old. But I think the first time that I really felt that leadership or being recognized is when my first round of students graduated. And I saw that they actually listened to me and what I explained to them at the time, and like how I was trying to help them see themselves in an institution, in a state where there aren't a lot of folks of color, to be able to be seen, and taught them how to stand up for themselves. And I will brag in this moment that Liban Mohammed, who is running for Congress, is one of my former students. And I was like, oh, you really listened to me. Oh my God. When I said be the change, you said I got this. So seeing how the students I've helped mentor or stuff grow is how I saw my leadership, because I think it's also about the legacy that you leave behind and the people that learn from you and grow from you, and take those nuggets of what you're saying. Because sometimes you talk to students and then they're like, I'm like, did you hear me? Like, did you hear anything I said? And then like to see it that they did listen, that they did believe in themselves, that I was able to help. And that just means a lot to me to see my students successful, because I know that I did something helpful to contribute to their success.
One of the examples I'll give is I'm a sister of Lambda Theta Alpha Latin Sorority Incorporated. We are the first and largest Latina sorority in the nation, founded in 1975. And we're founded in a time where a lot of Latina women were first starting to have access to education and really engaged in education, a time of a lot of activism around women's rights in the 1970s. And so that really underscores our organization and who we are, and wanting to uplift what we call the universal woman through our principles of unity, love, and respect. And becoming a sister of that organization, I became a sister in my sophomore year of college. And throughout my 5 years, you do not have to graduate in 4 years. You take how long you take, and that is perfectly valid. During my 5 years at the institution I was at, I continued to grow. I held pretty much every position you could hold within the chapter. I had the honor and privilege of serving as what we call a pledge mistress, an assistant pledge mistress, so helping new sisters join the organization that I love so much. And through that, really found a whole plethora of things. I think it was a great exposure for me. I was growing up the animal girl. Y'all heard I got my wildlife conservation biology major, right? Unless you are my dad, who makes the joke that I still work with wildlife because students be wild. I really don't work in my field, right? And so I think for me, I found what it meant to connect with others. I found what it meant to be a student activist. I found what it meant to lead others, to receive feedback, to learn and grow beyond that, to be challenged to grow more, to uplift other women and other folks in spaces. And I think for me, that's something that I've been able to channel and continue to find strength in throughout my career. I've been a sister. This year will be 14 years since becoming a sister, and have continued to be actively engaged even post-graduation. And I attribute so much of how I lead, the ways in which I engage with others, the reasons that I center the human experience, and the diverse array of ways that folks can show up in lived experiences. I really attribute that to the leadership that I gained in that space, and the affirmation of that leadership over time, right? And the recognition that your style continues to grow. You as a leader will always continue to grow. There's always more to learn. It's something that I really try to captivate and capture each and every day in my own practice, that I will never be the perfect leader. There's always something more that I can learn, and something more that I can push for, right? And so I think I gained a lot from that experience and learned a lot about myself through that experience, and have found so much community and love in that space as well.
Yeah, I think for me, like coming on into the university, I've like been involved in student activism through MECHA, and I think that was like a very foundational place for me to like really understand like how to work with community, but also like learn different experiences and like what it means to like do work that's like bigger than yourself, and it's not driven in like individualism but collectively. And so a lot of the work that I did was like through high school conferences. Like education is really important to me, and I think as we can see, like with policies and laws that are making it increasingly difficult to access education for a lot of like students of different backgrounds, that is something that I really care about. And so a lot of the work that I do was like very like much rooted in planning and being like very thoughtful about like what work I put into this conference. And so sometimes I don't recognize that that's like a form of leadership. And I remember I had a friend, an organizer who's a friend of mine, and she just came up to me and she was like, I really recognize like, the work that you do, and like you think about everything very intentionally and very thoughtfully, and that really like stuck with me because it's not something that is like you don't think about it as being a form of leadership, and it is very important. And so I feel like that has helped me recognize that other people have different ways in the way that they show up as a leader, and I think that has always been in the back of my mind of just like being very intentional how I am with the other people, but like the way that I show up is very intentional as well. So that's
Great, thank you so much. Yes, I love hearing about how leaders show up in different spaces, and you might not always see the impact in that space. And then if you're lucky enough, you get to see the impact later that you've had. So I really thank you for sharing. Our third question is, what is one thing that you would like to correct in the social narrative surrounding women in leadership?
I can go first. Maybe it's a little less common, but I feel like there's this narrative that women can't be leaders because they're too emotional. And I want to unpack that. One, I don't see emotion as a bad thing. I think it's actually a superpower. I think women are able to tap into empathy a little bit more easily. That emotional intelligence helps you to be a better leader in spaces. And so while if you all know me, I am a very highly emotional person. If you do any of the like leadership quizzes, I'm the bluest of the blue. Like I am an emotion-driven person. But like I said, I think that makes me stronger because I can connect with folks. I can listen to their experience and use that to activate change. I can tap into that emotion and that authentic way of being to spur me on to do more, right? If I feel passionate about something, if something hits me enough to bring tears to my eyes, that is something that I am going to fight for no matter what. And so I really do think, one, that narrative is, so what if women are more emotional, or if any person is more emotional? I don't think that's a bad thing. And I do think that because of that, it actually makes women stronger leaders in a lot of spaces.
I'm still thinking.
I think I'll have to like piggyback off what Cassie said. I think a lot of people don't recognize like the power of like being like someone who's in tune with their emotions, because I feel like these people understand how to work with different individuals who come from different experiences, even with traumas or in these spaces, and they understand that this person isn't just coming as like a single thing. Like they are more than how they show up. And so I feel like being connected in understanding like being connected emotionally with other people is important. And I feel like it's not recognized enough or seen as something that is as valued. Because if you're able to like recognize how other people are navigating into spaces, you're able to like communicate better with them, and you're able to like work with them and do work that is like actually meaningful. But
I think it's not necessarily a myth, but just actions that happen to women in leadership. For example, if you're sitting in a meeting with predominantly men and then you get asked to take notes, even if you're leading the meeting, or if you're expected to get coffee or have the meeting room set up, or like things that are more assistant, executive assistant, secretary things that historically have been female-driven professions due to what was available to them, to where a lot of the women colleges across the country were made and designed to teach women how to do those things effectively. So I think it's not necessarily like the myth of it, but how do you stand up to holding your own in those spaces and lead with your own power of like, maybe we all take turns taking notes. And so, you go first today. Or not that I'm not the greatest fan of AI note taking, but if there is a way to supplement like those things to where it's not put on the woman in the room to be the glue of the background. So like not like in the middle doing all the leadership things, but kind of like you're the background character putting stuff together. Yes, your voice is heard. Of course we listen to women. Anyway, so like when you need to stand up for yourself and others in that space, and how to do that with grace, dignity, and power, that my mom always says, stand in your power in those moments, and others that try to belittle your effectiveness or your place there. Because we are, especially as a Black 6 foot plus size woman, I am imposing to a lot of people, which is fine. I've been 6 foot since high school, so I have plenty of time to get used to it. But when we go into these spaces, there's this level of intimidation that happens, so people come at me personally with aggression first, and that they have to put me, let's remind you where you stand in these spaces. And it's the combating against that without feeding into stereotypes, and sometimes being the angry Black woman in the room because y'all made me angry and I'm Black, so that's how that happens, right? So like how to take those spaces to work for yourself, to stand in your power in that, to recognize when things are happening around you that are systematic and historical, and how do you break those chains in real time to the point that you feel comfortable. I'm not asking you to make yourself uncomfortable or unsafe in these spaces, but maybe it is the consideration of this thing happened and I want to process this so that it doesn't happen next time, right? These folks typically talked over me when I tried to say something, or I said something and someone took my idea and then said it, and then now they're getting credit for my idea. How do you stand up for yourself in those spaces? And that's difficult, right? Because everybody has a different type of temperament, and you need to do things that are authentic to you.
Beautiful. I'm over here taking notes, and I'm like, I have to write that down. I have to write that down. I really love how you all touched on this idea of like standing up for yourself in your workspace and like in your leadership positions and everything. And I think that's really amazing. To go into our fourth question, I'm going to start with the phrase, surround yourself with women who would mention your name in a room full of opportunities. It is a powerful statement that we'd like to see more of. How do you feel this phrase can be embodied in leadership environments?
Would you like to go first? Okay. To also brag on my sorority. So again, I'm in Beta Kappa Sigma, Black and Latina Sorority Incorporated. It is a smaller sorority back east. And if you're 14 years old, yeah. I'm 15 years old because I was the year before. And my sisters have consistently went out of their way to make sure I had opportunities to just see what was out there before I knew I was going to work in higher ed. My sisters did, and they showed me what that was like. I get to go to conferences and see them there, and get really excited that I've had sisters that have done TED Talks. Oh, teach me how to do that, and like, can you help me with my applications, and be able to have that. And then also from a Utah perspective, a dear friend of mine that passed away last year, the Nikki Walker, who consistently dragged me places when I was getting used to Utah. And she was also from New Jersey and would be like, you're coming with me to this gala. Let's go get a dress. Let's go. Like, I need you in these spaces. You need to be here because, baby sister, you just shine so bright and people need to know who you are here. And I was able to find community through her and get access to spaces that I wouldn't have had if she didn't say, y'all need to know my little sister. So with those combinations of people and the legacy of Nikki, and being able to have friends like Cassie and be able to be on panels like this, because I just got an email. My name was spoken in rooms that I didn't know people were talking in, right? And I think that, like, when you do that for other people and you have that exchange of, it's just all love because people know you're a good person and people care about you and they want you to succeed, is so important. And you need to surround yourself with folks that A, will lift you up always, and two, have just as much or more to lose as you. And the reason why I say that is because if we go into a space, this space right here, we all had to say that we do not represent the university before we speak because we can get in trouble, right? That's just what it is. If they didn't care about our reputation or how we showed up, we could have all just got in trouble. Like, they could have just been like, well, you shouldn't have said it, right? But they care. We're surrounded by other leaders and organizations that care about our livelihood as employees, as people, as giving us the freedom to be able to speak. And if we all didn't have something to lose, we would have just lost it, right? Those of us that might have had something to lose. So, like, making that consideration, not saying that you can't have friends all over the chart, but understanding that when you have something, if you have a scholarship and you have to have a certain GPA, and you have friends that don't have a scholarship, that don't have to have a certain GPA, when we're studying, that is just going to be a different push because they don't have to keep their scholarship, right? So who are you surrounding yourself with? Who's pushing you? Who's making you feel like, okay, it's not competition. It's fierce encouragement. Oh, you got this? Oh, I'm about to get this too. Let's get this together. Like, how do we do that? So surrounding yourself with people that really push you and also understand how much you have to lose and why it's important.
Yeah, so I think looking at things from a US context, we are a westernized society. A lot of westernized societies are embedded within hierarchical practices. And for me, hierarchy is oftentimes driven and centered in individuality and individualisticness. My leadership approach and my style is community first before individual. It's a lot more collectivist in nature, and works to decenter some of those pieces. For me, I think so often women are pitted against each other in society, right? Whether that be through, I will admit, I occasionally watch your like reality TV show, right? And so like we see women being pitted against each other through these conflict moments, and that is everything that it's about, right? Same thing happens in workplaces, same thing happens in life in general, where women are pitted against each other, not necessarily by themselves, but by society and the people that are around them. And as we think about that, I think a lot of that comes from when you are individualistic, that inherently ties into competitiveness, right? And the need to be the best, be better than everyone else, as opposed to lifting everyone with you from that community approach, right? And competition for me is based in white supremacy, it's based in patriarchy, it is based in utilizing and wielding power with not good intention, right? And so as I think about that, one, I always strive to remind myself to live in that collectivist nature. I surround myself by folks who do the same. And to Shaw's point, like, we're on this panel because someone mentioned our name somewhere, right? So that tells me that we are surrounding ourselves by the right folks who are uplifting our names. And I strive to reciprocate that for the women in my life, the people in my life, uplifting them. And kind of going back a little bit to the previous question of ways that this can look in real time, Shaw gave the example of, like, we've all been in that meeting where you say something and someone takes credit for it, or they supposedly restate it, and now it's this brilliant, genius idea, right? How can we work together as women in that space? Sure, there are times where you may be the only woman in that space, but you may not always, right? And so how can we, in those moments, let's say someone claims Shaw's idea, I can then be an ally in that space and say, you know what, that actually sounds a lot like what Shaw said, and I would love to get credit to Shaw, right? So how can you work together to uplift each other, to defend each other, and to do that collective power of standing up for yourselves within those spaces, I think is really important and a great way to build yourself up as that person who is going to mention other people in the room. And when you do that, you automatically attract folks who are going to do the same for you. For sure.
Yeah, I think for me, the people that I really care about and who care about me are a lot of women and a lot of queer folk. Those are the people who are constantly like pushing me to like do things that I am like scared of doing, but they recognize like the work that I do, and so these are the people that I often like feel go to like get advice from, or to like seek comfort, or like to like work through things that I don't understand, or how to like do something about it. And so when I hear like, I agree, like a lot of the times we're like pitted against one another and we're seen as competition, and it's like that's rooted in capitalism if we're like recognizing that. And so it's important to recognize at least like surrounding yourself is like amplifying one another and empowering one another and being part of these spaces and doing work as a collective, and understanding that we aren't each other's like enemies. Like, we are just trying to do like work towards a common goal and do something that's better for our one another. And so I think that's something that we have to often remind ourselves when we're in these spaces, because it often feels like we have to like fight one another, but that's not what the case is. And so that's what I think about when I think about this quote.
Mm-hmm. Can I say one more thing? As I think about that point, right, women are pitted against each other. And I think it's really important to recognize anytime there are more than one person, so anytime there's two or more people, there's a potential for conflict, right? And conflict does not in and of itself mean that you do not get along with that person or you cannot continue to work with them. So I'd say one of my strongest advice to you all in creating that space is learning how to navigate through conflict. Conflict is not inherently good or bad. It is just a process that exists when there are people with different lived experiences and backgrounds and coming together, right? And so learning how do you navigate through that constructively. When you navigate through conflict with someone, you are actually building relationships with them. You're learning, how do I navigate this person? How do I work through future conflicts? If you are navigating through conflict effectively, you won't have that exact same conflict time and time again. You may have others that arise, right? But you are ultimately strengthening relationships. And I think that's another point to exist, right? Is like, I think we've gotten into this like, cancel culture is really big, not listening and automatically assuming you know what someone believes because they've shared one thing. And I would encourage you to push past that and push into this space of exploring that conflict, as long as you can do so safely and without harm to yourself. There are times where like that's not going to work, right? Mm-hmm. But challenging yourself to do that, because I do think it helps you to be stronger leaders. There are lots of women who I count as very near and dear friends, and we have had big conflicts with each other, right? But we learned how to work through those together, and now to this day, I believe truly that those are women who will uplift me. Those are people who will uplift me, and I know I uplift them because we've navigated through those situations together. So I think, conflict and this sure, sometimes women have conflict with each other. Sometimes men have conflict with each other. People have conflict with people. Doesn't necessarily mean that we can't uplift each other and be together in that sense.
Yeah, and I kind of want to also add, I think that's super important because often conflict is like really scary and like this big thing, but it's important. It just means that we need to like pay attention to this and like create the necessary change to move forward. But I think it also like recognizing sometimes we need to hold one another accountable. We're gonna be making mistakes, and we need someone to be like, okay, you need to like check yourself. Like you came about this in a way that shouldn't be happening then. And those people are very important because they're keeping you grounded to your community and the work that you want to do.
Great, thank you. I love the back and forth that we got for that answer. And I love that when we talk about surrounding ourselves with people who will uplift, we also are part of that community too. And I had to write down fierce encouragement because I'm gonna have to send some emails after this just to thank people for their fierce encouragement. So thank you so much. Our next question is, can you speak to the ways that you had to apply different leadership styles in different spaces?
Yeah, so at work, who I am, the way that I show up here is very different than the way that I show up outside. Like there's still the same authenticity, but I can just talk to my friends a lot differently than I should talk to my coworkers, right? And there's times where I might be the leader, like I'm the person that's leading this meeting or this project or anything, and I'm more in like the project manager role of how do we get this done, what is needed, what has to happen, what doesn't have to happen, what are the timelines, how do I work with folks, how do I know that this person might have ADHD, and because of that, I need to write more detailed lists because that's what we have talked about that they need in order to be successful. Versus there's a collective that I work with outside of here called Black on Mars, and it's like a curation group that does different events, preserving like the Black historical essence creatively throughout Utah. So in that group, I'm not the leader. My friend Mars is, right? Like that's her baby. So it's more in this, how do I support you role? That's still a kind of leadership of how do I make sure that her dream comes true? How do I make sure that the ideas that my friends Alexander and Spike and folks have to get to their destination, how do I help in that? So when we think about leadership, there's always that that image of like, there's a leader that's in front, that's like sitting on the block and people are pulling them and they're guiding them. And then there's a leader that's helping pull with everybody to get to that destination. I think I'm both in both scenarios where I'm trying to work with everybody to get to our further destination, but am I directing folks to get there or am I just pulling? And I think it's important to know how you work and what you find important, what your skills are, what are you good at, so that you know where you fit in those spaces, so that you know, all right, well, if I need to take over in this point, this is what I need to do in order to take over in this point. Or if I need to step back, this is what I need to do to be able to step back. But it's difficult. There's code switching that happens there, right? Like, again, the way that I talk at work versus the way I talk to my friends versus the way I talk when I'm back in Jersey is very different. There's a whole different accent that I have. So how I do that and make folks feel comfortable changes.
I I think for me, I strive as much as possible to operate from a shared equity leadership model, which really focuses on being kind of in with the folks, leading with and getting a lot of feedback from folks, having them be a part of the decision-making process as much as possible. That is the way that I like to operate, and it's not always practical. If I need to make a decision really rapidly, sometimes there isn't time to elicit feedback, right? Depending, it is informed by the context you're in, the people you're communicating with, the setting, the everything really factors into how you show up. And so there may be times where I have to adapt my leadership style to be a little bit more coaching in nature. Or there's times where maybe I do lean a little bit more into a more authoritative leadership style, right? Doesn't mean that that's not authentic for me. It may be less my default and it may be a little bit less comfortable, but is me switching into that leadership style because I'm adapting to the people that are around me and the situation around me so that I can be effective and still continue to push forward what it is that I'm working to push forward, right? At the end of the day, that is what the goal of leadership is you have a vision and you're trying to bring it to fruition, and you have to do what you need to do that is ethically right to make that happen, right? And so being aware that it may change depending on if you're leading up. There will be times in your career where you will have to lead up, and that may take a different approach. Leading your peers will take a different approach, and then the practice of leading others as well, I think all takes different approaches, and will show up in different ways. And so a lot of learning, trial for sure on what is the appropriate space and way to be showing up, and being receptive to feedback as well. There are times where I've shown up with a leadership style that was not the match, right? And being really receptive to that feedback, taking ownership and accountability and responsibility for that, and then working to educate myself so that I don't make that same faux pas again, right, and cause harm through that. So I do think your leadership style is adaptable. It should be adaptable. If not, you really need to invest in educating yourself a little bit more about leadership and how you can authentically lead for yourself. Because I do think that's critical to leadership is you are always growing, and you should always challenge yourself to grow in your style.
Yeah, I think for my leadership style, it's like collaborative and like working with other people. I like when I'm navigating different spaces, I have to like understand like the power dynamics and where I'm able to do the most work, but through different styles. Institutional levels, like I understand that it's harder to push back and like, so I have to find another way to readjust and be flexible. And so that's where I like depend on other people who are able to do that work. They can do that work, and I could like support in other ways. But that's how I approach different spaces. Because ultimately, what's important to me is that I center the community that I work with, and that I'm making sure that that their needs are at the forefront of whatever work I take upon.
And if I can add, there's what I would like for y'all to do to discover your leadership style. There's a bunch of tests and everything, but I want you to think of who was a teacher, a parent, a person that made you feel the most safe in a situation. What did they do? How did they talk? How did they present themselves to you? And then I want you to think of the reverse. When did you have a terrible situation? What did they do? How did they talk? How did they make you feel? And then figure out for you where that, like, you know what kind of leader you want to be based off of the leaders that you've experienced. If you experienced someone, if you had a teacher that was not great, and then you're like, I want to be a teacher, so I make sure that never happens to anybody else again. That's like a real reason why a lot of folks get into their profession, is because they had somebody that was terrible. Or the other side, they had somebody that was great and they want to be able to take that. So what are the things, what are the qualities that you've seen in people, in the people around you, and how do you want to adapt to those and pull those in? I saw this on TikTok, so I can't remember the creator, so my bad for not giving direct credit, but we are a museum of the people that we met before us. And what you choose to put in that museum is very important. But take that time to really like, what do I love about this person? Or what do I not want to add into my museum about that particular person? And you know, there's the duality of everybody. So there might be good and bad in the same. But just kind of think about that as you grow and as you grow in your profession, whatever that may be. who are your idols there, and how do you want to take what they give, and or how do you want to make sure you don't replicate that?
That was awesome. I love Shaw. Shaw and I actually had a class together my very first semester of my ELP program, and I loved them. They were so amazing, and I just loved having class with them. Oh. So just due to time, I'm gonna skip to our last question, which I think is kind of something that we would just want to like have y'all take away from this. So, in your view, what are the biggest gaps today pertaining to showing up authentically in leadership, and how can those in attendance fill those gaps?
And we have about 5 minutes.
Got it.
I can go first. So I think one of the biggest gaps is in authentic leadership today is like the pressure to compromise your values, and for the sake of like approval with like funding and like institutional direction, like often we're asked like to like be to minimize the work that we care about deeply, and I think it often like puts you in like this like really difficult position because you know what the work that you care about and how important it is for you, and you shouldn't be able to, at least for myself, I don't like to do that. So, and sometimes it feels like you have to, like you're being pressured because like everybody's, you have the institution like pressuring you to do these things. But I choose to like push against that because at the end of the day, the people that I care about are my community members. They are the people who are going to be the most impacted by the work that I do or whatever I decide. So I feel like it's important that I find a way to work with the community in whatever work I end up doing. But that's something that I think about a lot when I'm doing work. Do you guys want to add anything?
If y'all can walk away with anything, I want you to walk away with knowing that you're capable of everything, and that all you have to do is think with the future in mind and remember the past so that we don't repeat things, right? We don't repeat the history. But you are so capable of being whatever you dream of being. And regardless of gender, race, or religion, the world is set up against everyone in some kind of way to not be successful, right? But we're in a time where, as terrible as it is, because it is terrible, we're seeing the possibility of what is life post the next 4 years. And we get to dream that up, right? What America looks like has never happened before. And where you show up in that and who you are and who your community is in that, you get to build from scratch now. We will make it through. We've done it before. But who do you want to be on the other side of things? And start working on that person now.
I'd say one of the things we haven't talked about is like wellness and leadership, right? So I think especially as we're doing that visionary work, as we're looking towards what can societal change look like and societal growth look like, that is not a short-term project. That is going to be a lifelong endeavor. And leading in that space, it takes a lot of effort, right? It is putting yourself out there in spaces that can have levels of risk with it. It is coming back day after day after day, night after night. It's late nights, it's early mornings. It can look like so many things. And if you are not centering your wellness, you will burn out, right? And then who's gonna carry on the fight? And so I really think as you look at that, it's about how do you center wellness and how do you take care of yourself? How do you find things that fill your cup so that you are not emptying your cup, right? Several of us in the room have a wonderful mentor, Dr. Sherry Watkins, and she has been sharing this anecdote that I really appreciate, which is share from your overflow, right? So you're not emptying your cup to the point of it being empty, but rather how are you filling your cup and then leading from that overflow so that it is authentic, so that it is not draining you, and so that you can continue to uplift others into that space. And wellness can look like so many things. I think there are some misconceptions as to like what is self-care, what does that look like? Is it a bath? For some people, maybe, right? That like super done up bath that we always see on TikTok. Looks great. I'm not a bath girl. That sounds terrible to me. I'm gonna be sitting there with my mind racing for honestly probably only 5 minutes before I get out because I'm gonna be bored, right? And so I think learning what it is that wellness is for you. For me, it is community. It is getting together with others and having joy. It is going on a hike. It is taking time to rest is so critical. Many of us up here have multiple roles. We're students, we're employees, we have families that we're supporting. That can be exhausting, and you just need to take a break, and that is okay, right? Giving yourself that permission is so critical. And I really don't think we talk about that enough when it comes to leadership spaces, of the importance of that wellness, as well as teaching folks what that wellness can look like for your overall whole existence as a human. So
Crying.
Yes, crying is so validating. Listen, sometimes when I'm really, really stressed out, I will put on my go-to movie is Walk to Remember without fail. I'll just get my waterworks going, right? But I will just get it started, and then once the tears come, that like release can be so great, right? Or like screaming into the world. Or there's these dolls. I'm not trying to curse, but they are called Damn It dolls, and like it's really just like a stuffed doll that you can bang the heck out of on a wall without doing any damage. And sometimes you just need that release when it is appropriate, right? So being really willing to do that. And my other final piece of advice, if you do not have a therapist or a counselor and have not done that self-exploration work, I firmly believe every single human in the world can benefit from those opportunities and explorations. And so I would highly recommend getting a therapist who can help you in those tough times, and be prepared to support you as well as help you develop.
And a plug, as students, you have free counseling here in SSB, the Counseling Center. That's both group counseling and individual counseling and couples counseling as well. Please, when it comes to your health and wellness, again, I work in that area. All of the things that we have except medication management, like prescriptions and stuff, is free for students. That's your coaches, that's the rec center, that's peer navigators if you rather talk to a fellow student than one of our professional staff. We have our victim survivor advocates as well for those that might have gone through things that need a little bit more support. We have things that are here for you. We also have we just started them calling Wellness Exchange. So if you know about the food pantry and the thrift store at the bottom of the Union, there's going to be little satellite ones all across campus. The engineering building, the law school is going to have one. There's one in SSB 350 that's also our wellness lounge. So if you want to come, a place to do homework. Not a lot of people know about it yet, so there's still more tables and all the things, a good study area, coffee, tea, all the things. Your wellness is very important to us, not only as growing as students, but growing as leaders as well. And I'm gonna speak for all of us and say that if you need that kind of support or more leadership advice or anything like that, please feel free to reach out to us to be able to get that kind of support.
Can I plug in one more thing?
Go ahead.
So I didn't talk about this that much, but something that I really leaned into when things are becoming really difficult is community and the work that I do. So I'm part of United Campus Workers of Utah. So it's like a union for campus workers and the hospital workers. And we're currently working on a You for Who campaign, and a lot of it is about just like gathering signatures for a petition for like just like students and workers who are like right now going through like unfair staffing ratios, increased workloads, and just like getting charged for parking. Like things that they shouldn't be charged for as workers and students. And one of the biggest things that we've been working is advocating for a sanctuary campus and hospital. So if you guys are interested in learning more about that, feel free to talk to me. I would be happy to talk to you about it.
Thank you so much. So we're out of time. Thank you to our panelists. Let's give them We have installments of Crimson Conversations coming up throughout the year. Please follow CCE on our socials to learn more about those. So this turn on. And follow us. You can visit our website too for more information about our other programming. But thank you so much for coming. And get food if you haven't.